And welcome back to Lycan Studios. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day. So we're going to jump right into episode 3, but I gotta say, in the beginning of all of these fan fiction plot leaks, this is fake. Do not believe this is true. We're gonna destroy it in the breakdown in coming videos. The episode begins at the Carhold. They will show the castle and the land completely destroyed. Everything is in ruins, with smoke rising from piles of rubble. Acres of land are soaked in blood, with pieces of clothes, uniforms, and broken weapons everywhere. It will look like a typical battlefield, but the only difference is that there are no bodies anywhere. The next scene takes place in Winterfell. It will be a long shot that pans around the outside of the castle, showing all of the preparations being made for the battle lurking ahead. Outside the main wall, trenches are being dug. It appears to be a moat. The Hound, Tormund, and a few others are carrying barrels of pitch to fill the trenches. When the battle begins, they plan to light it on fire, enclosing Winterfell in a ring of fire. There are hundreds of archers on standby at the top of Winterfell's walls. There are barrels lined up every 10 feet filled with arrows made with dragonglass tips. Down in the yard, stacks and stacks of spears are being piled up with their tips being made from dragonglass as well. Grey Worm is in the yard and his spear looks slightly different than the rest. His was made out of the red dragonglass. Gendry is shown next, equipped with a new hammer he has made himself. The head has several spikes, all made with different colored dragonglass, black, red, and green. Jon, Sansa, Arya, and Ghost are walking around the courtyard, overlooking all of the work and preparations being made. Arya tells them about her run-in with Nymeria and her pack. She says she wanted Nymeria to come home with her, but deep down she knows Nymeria was meant to roam in the wild. Arya hopes to see her again. Jon looks at Ghost and appears sad that Ghost is the only direwolf left in Winterfell. Jon tells Arya they were meant to have these wolves. As long as they are alive, they will always have a connection. He says that even when he and Ghost are apart, he always has a sense that he is near. Arya explains that she knows exactly what he means. As Jon, Sansa, and Arya are walking around the courtyard, a few of the guards begin to yell down to them from the walls. They tell Jon that a rider is approaching the gates. Beric Dondarrion has arrived at Winterfell. He looks like he is about to collapse, but manages to yell at the men to open the gates to allow him inside. When Arya recognizes him, she pulls out her dagger. She tells him that he has come to the wrong place. Jon is confused by her actions, but Arya explains that this is the man who sold Gendry to the Red Witch and that she swore she would kill him if she ever saw him again. Beric says, "Kill me if you must, but I have come to play my part in the Great War." He tells the group that the Night King and the army of the dead will arrive at Winterfell tonight. The next scene shows Euron and the Golden Company arriving in King's Landing. Cersei, Qyburn, and the Mountain are outside waiting for them. Euron greets Cersei by kissing her hand, saying, "I have completed every task you have set upon me." Cersei agrees that he should be awarded. Cersei begins to discuss leadership with the commander of the Golden Company. Since Jaime has left the city, she is looking for a new commander of her own army. She tells why he has left to serve the bastard and his dragon bitch, showing her jealousy and bitterness. She notices that the Golden Company commander tenses at the mention of dragons. Cersei asks him if he is afraid of the dragons. The commander responds by saying that he has always wanted to see one, not really believing that they are real. Cersei then responds saying that not only will you see them, but you will help me kill them. All of them, along with the bastard and other traitors. Euron says that he would like to speak with Cersei alone while staring at the mountain nervously. Cersei obliges and heads back to the Red Keep. Next up we have Theon. Theon and a small group of Ironborn men land on Dragonstone. Now that everyone went north, the island is pretty much abandoned. Theon decides to land to feed his men and hopefully find weapons. He thinks about how he will need to board the Silence in order to free Yara. When night falls, they plan on heading to King's Landing in hope of getting her back. He knows they will have to sneak aboard and any interference could mean their deaths. Back at Winterfell, Bran, Sam, Tyrion, and the Maester enter the Godswood. Tyrion says there has to be answers in this book discussing the legends of Azor Ahai. Melisandre talks about there being a prince that was promised. Bran shares old Nan stories about the last hero. All of these legends are said to have faced the darkness and won. Sam says to Bran, "Maybe you can find out more about this Azor Ahai. We need to find out who he is and how he ended the long night." Bran takes a deep breath and his eyes roll back into his head. Bran sees another series of visions from the past, present, and future. The first thing he sees is a silhouette standing on a battlefield. The silhouette is holding a red sword and is standing face to face with the Night King. He then sees the same battlefield, but this time no one is there. All the snow is gone and he sees a man face down in the water with red rubies all around him. Next he sees a crowd of people cheering for a mounted knight. The knight leans down and hands something to a woman, causing the crowd to go eerily silent. Then Bran is at the wall. A pool of blood is in the snow. When he looks into the blood, he can see blue rose petals scattered through it. Bran is then back at the Tower of Joy, but this time Lyanna is sitting up on the bed talking to a man with hair so blonde that it looks silver. Bran can hear the man say he will be the Song of Ice and Fire. Bran can see a woman dressed in red with hair as red as the bleeding star. It looks like she is talking to someone, but he can't quite make out who. It sounds like Jon's voice, but all he sees is a silhouette holding a sword with steam rising from it. Bran returns back to the battlefield covered in snow, once again looking at the man standing face to face with the Night King. The man swings his sword at the Night King as the Night King moves towards him, but before he can see the outcome, Bran snaps out of his vision. When Bran opens his eyes, he is completely covered in sweat. He was gripping his chair so hard that his hands are red and sore. Tyrion, Sam, and the Maester are looking at him anxiously, awaiting to hear of his visions. Bran says he knows how to defeat the Night King. Everything makes sense now. I know why the three-eyed raven showed me the tower. I know everything. Take me to Jon. As Bran is being pushed across the courtyard, he spots the rest of the group. When Jon sees Bran, he can instantly tell that something is wrong. Bran tells Jon that it is time that we talk alone. Jon decides to take Bran down into the crypts of Winterfell, but as he begins to, more riders are announced arriving at the gates. This time, there are hundreds. Before Jon can ask what's going on, men begin to arm themselves. He can hear people shouting, and he can hear the name Kingslayer. Jaime and Bronn have arrived, along with men from the twins, the Freys. Jaime has managed to gather a few hundred men that were still scattered around the twins. Tyrion cannot believe his eyes. He cannot believe that Jaime has rode to Winterfell, but he does notice that he is not wearing Lannister colors, and he is without his Lannister men. Something is wrong. Jaime and Bronn are greeted without any courtesy. Sansa demands to know what the hell is going on and why Jaime is here with Frey men. Men from above on the wall begin to scream, Kingslayer, the North remembers. Jon attempts to quiet the chants, asking Jaime where the rest of his men are. Sansa notices Jaime's sword, one of the two swords made from ice, Ned's sword. Brienne begins to panic, so she steps in between them. She tells Sansa that Jaime saved her life and that he is not the man he once was. He gave me this sword to protect you. He told me to use Ned Stark's sword to protect Ned Stark's daughters. Jaime interrupts, saying that he has come to help as he unsheaths his sword. He offers the sword back to the Starks, asking that he can have a different one in return to help fight the army of the dead. Northern men pull their swords on him, watching carefully. Jaime continues to say that he knows the Starks and Lannisters are enemies and that he has done terrible things he wishes he could change, but he can't. All I can do now is be a man of my word and promise to help you win this war. Cersei is not coming, and Euron lied. He went to pick up the Golden Company from Essos, not to return to his Iron Islands. Cersei plans to use them to defeat the survivors of this battle, including myself. When Dany hears about Cersei's lies, she gives Tyrion a venomous look. Varys puts his head down and walks away. Jon looks at Jaime and says, I don't like you nor trust you, but we need you. He motions to Jaime and Bronn, telling them to come inside, also telling their men to wait outside the gates. They are not permitted to enter until everything is sorted. Euron, Cersei, and the Mountain enter the chambers to talk in privacy. Euron wants the Mountain to step outside, but Cersei tells him not to worry. He doesn't speak. Euron begins pressing the issue of getting what is owed to him, her hand in marriage. He says that he is a better man than Jaime and that Jaime won't be returning, at least not without his head on a spike. Cersei continues to play hard to get, but eventually she begins to soften up some. She knows what Euron wants, but decides to tell him of her pregnancy by Jaime. Euron states that he doesn't care if she is pregnant. He says that all he has ever wanted is to marry the most beautiful woman in the world. He is a king and deserves to have a queen by his side. He says he wants to rule Westeros together and that he would never betray or abandon her. Cersei enjoys the attention and pledge of loyalty, but isn't ready to marry him and make him king. She reassures him that in time he will get everything promised to him. She asks the Mountain to leave them and takes him by the hand to her bed. Back at Winterfell, everyone is gathered in the main hall. Lord Glover and Jon Royce are the loudest voices in the room. They are outraged at the sight of the Kingslayer. They warn Jon that if they allow this man to make camp in the north, he will slit their throats while they sleep. You cannot trust a Lannister. Brienne and Tyrion tried to subdue the tension in the room by explaining how they need all the help they can get, even from Jaime. They say he wouldn't have dared to come under ill intentions. Lord Royce threatens to take the Knights of the Vale home. He will not have his men fighting alongside the Kingslayer. This causes other men to begin to stand up, saying that they will march home as well. They will wait out the winter on their own lands. Jon slams his fist onto the table and yells, "Enough." He states that he hasn't and will not force anyone to stay and fight, but if you flee home, you will die. The only way they have a chance to survive the winter and the army of the dead is together. It's the only way. Jon continues to state that he has no love for the Lannisters and they are responsible for the murder of his father, his brother, and Lady Stark. I don't want him here any more than any of you, but we need men to fight this evil. Most of you haven't seen the army of the dead. None of you know of his power and his numbers. You will though, and you will soon enough wish to have every living soul fighting together regardless of your differences. My own men on the wall murdered me for allowing the wildlings through the wall, but I would do it again knowing it can help save the realm. This revelation stuns everyone in the Great Hall. Jaime apologizes to Jon for what has happened to him and his family. He swears that he had nothing to do with Ned Stark's death or the wedding. Jaime asks Varys to vouch for him since he was there, but to their disbelief, Varys is not in the room. No one has seen him since he walked away from the main gate. As they talk amongst themselves, Bran enters the hall. As Jaime notices Bran, he shifts his stance as his right arm begins to tremble. Bran is being pushed by Arya into the hall and is put next to Jon and Sansa. Arya notices that Jaime is trembling and flushed and asks what's wrong. You look like you've seen a ghost. Jaime says nothing as the memory of pushing Bran out of the tower rushes through his mind. Arya says that she remembers him and Bronn well, celebrating at the twins after they murdered the Blackfish, her uncle. She pulls the face of the serving girl out of her bag and says, "Remember me?" Jaime's eyes begin to fill with water. Several men stand up and walk behind Jaime and Bronn with their swords drawn. Arya pulls out her dagger and begins to spin it around in her hand. The tension in the room has reached a boiling point. She asks if there is anything else he wishes to confess. Jaime doesn't say a word but can feel Bran looking at him, looking into his soul, deep into his past. As he struggles to find the words, Bran says, "I know." Tyrion is beginning to feel just as many eyes on him as his brother Jaime. Men are beginning to mutter curses and he can hear the word imp as much as Kingslayer. Tyrion realizes he is just as likely to die alongside Jaime. Lord Glover stands and tells Bran to tell everyone what he knows. "What have you seen, Bran? What do you know about the Kingslayer?" Bran's eyes never leave Jaime, and Sansa stands and demands someone to speak. Jaime looks at Sansa on the verge of a breakdown. He says that "I will tell you everything" as he begins to cry. Jaime moves to the center of the room, ready to admit to his faults, guilt, and past crimes. Jaime looks at the Starks and begins by saying, "I am truly sorry. I do not expect anyone to forgive me for what I am about to say." Tyrion looks at Bran, and he seems certain of what is coming next. Deep down, he also knew it was true. He knows that he could be put to death for the crimes committed by his family as well. As Jaime continues with his confessions, the sound of a horn sends shivers down everyone's spine. The sound was so loud that it could wake the dead. The Great Hall of Winterfell erupts in chaos. Everyone's worst fear has just become a reality. The army of the dead has arrived. Jon immediately orders everyone who is not willing or able to fight to get underground and flee. During preparations, Jon had planned for this, so he had his men map out an escape route through these secret passages. He then tells Tormund and the Hound to light the pitch in the trenches as he hands Jaime Widow's well. He says, "If you have any ounce of honor left, prove it by fighting with me." When they get outside to the courtyard, they are engulfed with snow, causing a complete whiteout. Visibility is limited to a few feet in front of them. Knowing Dany is pregnant, Jon asks her to get underground as well. Dany then refuses, saying she needs to fight as well and that without her help, they will all die anyways. Jon has no argument knowing how badly she is needed to command the dragons. Dany mounts Drogon and takes to the sky, unable to see anything. Jon gets to the top of the main wall and looks out into the storm, hoping to see the army of the dead and the Night King. He cannot see anything at first, but then notices a faint glow of blue eyes off into the distance. Tens of thousands of blue eyes are looking at him all around the castle. With most of their forces camped outside of the walls, Jon hopes that they can brace themselves before being overran. The snow is so deep that the Dothraki will be unable to mount their horses. Bran attempts to warg into ravens in order to see out into the storm, to find the Night King. The birds will not take flight, however, with the storm being so close, or possibly due to the Night King's power. The screams of thousands of dying men pierce through the storm like a crack of thunder. The battle has begun. The Great War is here. Jon, the Hound, Jaime, Tormund, Grey Worm, Jorah, Arya, Gendry, and several others exit the main gate to head into the storm. The pitch in the trenches is ignited, enclosing Winterfell in a ring of fire. No one can go out or come into Winterfell. Their destiny lies ahead of them as they enter the battle. The faint glow of dragonfire can be seen in the distance as Rhaegal and Drogon have found their targets. The Night King seems to have sent his army forward at first before deciding to face the two dragons himself. It is revealed that he has dozens of White Walkers equipped with ice spears along with his giants that have spears every bit of 10 feet long. During the battle, Grey Worm will be killed by a White Walker due to the lack of visibility. Nearly all of the Unsullied are killed during the first wave along with thousands of Dothraki. Brienne ends up taking a crushing wound to her leg during the battle. Tormund and Jorah try to get her back to the castle, but Tormund is killed during the rescue. Jaime and Jon are both wounded, and Arya finds herself surrounded by whites. Jaime and Jon manage to fight their way to her and save her before she is overwhelmed. Dany is able to destroy thousands and thousands of whites, but it is impossible to see where all of them are and how many there actually are. With the amount of injuries and chaos erupting, they fall back to the castle. They are hoping Dany can manage to take out the lot of them during their retreat. Meanwhile, on the other side of the castle, giants are carrying a huge boulder to throw down into the flaming moat. Once the rock is in place, it will give them something to climb on to be able to reach the castle. Suddenly, the Night King enters the battle. Viserion's scream sounds much louder than Drogon's and Rhaegal's now. Dany attempts to have both dragons land by the gate to escort the wounded to safety quicker. As she lands Drogon, Rhaegal is hit with an ice spear, ripping through his wing and side, so he flies off erratically. As everyone boards Drogon, the sound of Viserion is getting closer as his blue flame becomes brighter and brighter. Dany realizes she doesn't have much time and cannot attack with all of these people mounted on Drogon's back. She decides to fly away from the castle as hundreds of whites can be seen climbing over the walls. The Night King appears through the storm and they can see him torch the Godswood. That's the first thing he does. The heart tree that has stood in Winterfell for ages and countless generations is shown up in flames as the episode ends. But yeah guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. The plot leak is pretty fun, but like I said in the beginning of this video, we are going to destroy it when we break it down. So anyways, I'll see you in episode 4. Hopefully it'll come out tomorrow, but if not, definitely expect it the next day.